Chapter 15. As the Evening Falls. BC. As the sun set on Reen that day, the evening found nearly the entire home staff of Velvet gathered in the rooftop garden, a moment of togetherness hosted by May. It had been brought together in the way that most things in the pit were, by word of mouth and a collective love for the idea. And now the sweet smell of smoke off of the grill filled the air. In the golden light of the evening, the cool ocean breeze that drew the need for a light jacket but no more, and with the company of friends all around small fires, it was almost possible to forget the events of the night before. Beside the grill, a few of the muscle teams nursed beers as they followed the instinctual male desire to observe meat as it cooked, commenting never too much but never too little on the actions of today's grill master, a thick southerner named Haivo, who appreciated the company. On the haphazardly arranged tables, there were a blend of older and younger girls working on a fruit salad, chatting as they chopped marrowboars and guave to mix with veil leaf and scissor grass, and top it all off with a Galavan dressing. Beyond them, lounging on porch furniture dragged into position, on couches that bore the signs of many an afternoon in and out of the sun, on spare mattresses and stumps of logs and hazily constructed lazy leaners, were the rest of Velvet's motley crew of working girls, valets, bartenders, muscle, supervisors, and even Baxter, the money man. There were a dozen spaces in Velvet far more elegant for hosting an occasion, spaces that could be arranged into ballrooms and long tables, places for dining and parties and occasions of trust and betrayal, but this one felt like home, their place for no one else. Pit celebrations always required ample recovery time. Moments to exchange stories of the previous night's insanity, come off of tail-end drugs in the company of others, renew the spirits after any disappointments. It was a cleanse of sorts, where there were no drugs and little alcohol, and no loud music and no guests, just family. And it was needed tonight, after the events of the evening before, where celebration had turned to chaos, to celebration, to chaos again, undercut by the trio of love, lust, and hard substance. Everyone needed to come down a little bit. The steady thump of sandbag against wood, the unmistakable sound of bonboard being played, was as familiar as it was utterly frustrating to BC. She felt a seething hatred at the one sport she truly loathed, and it helped serve a nice familiar presence. "Fuck!" BC shouted, as yet another tossed sandbag slid off onto the floor. "Now, I'm going to be straight with you here, BC," Waver said, leaning over as he tossed another sandbag straight onto the board for another point. "You are really, really, really good at this game." "You little..." BC growled, trailing off into a set of insults that almost certainly could have started a bar fight had everyone not gotten used to BC's razor tongue by now. For the first few times she had played bonboard, it had started a few bar fights. "Wow," Waver chuckled as he drained a shot straight through the hole in the board's center. "Those were a few new ones. And creative, I'll have to tell the boys."
"Hey, BC!"
Kalechi yelled, teasing.
"You should try being less shitty."
With a muttered growl again, BC tossed her final bag so far over the board that she caught Fudge on the back of the head. The Willimons bounced up, searching for the cause of the whap on its noggin, then began to chase its tail and then fell over, garbling for help. Lau walked over to the Willimons to grab the sandbag, and flipped Fudge over after a warm pat on the belly. "Hey, Fudge," she asked, loud enough to be heard by the other set of boards. "You any good at bonboard? I need a new partner to tag in for BC." Fudge garbled happily before a passing morpho caught its eye and it ran off in chase.
"Hey, Lau, I'll play,"
Rosie called.
"Hey, Rosie, just got another in-home. You down?"
A voice interrupted.
Scratch that. I'll be back for a round later,"
Rosie answered, turning down and flagging a valet and some muscle for her trip. "All righty, still just me," Lau said with a laugh, returning to the opposing bond board next to Kalechi. Man, another in-home on a Sunday, Waver said. That's rare. I don't know why I still play this fucking game, BC muttered, cursing at the board. Because you are still stubborn as shit, Waver answered, and you keep convincing yourself that somehow you'll do better the next time. Were you listening? Yeah, she said, nodding. She hadn't been. Have a good time, Rosie, Waver called, waving to the girl. Cal and Lau began to shoot. Oh shit, another in-home on a Sunday? BC asked. That's rare. You don't say, Waver said, rolling his eyes. Guess people got that end-of-the-world lovin' on their mind, BC said. There was a pause in which a shot came and went from Cal. What do you think about all that? Waver said. Shit that's going down. BC sighed. I'm really done talking about this shit, Wave, she said. Well, you slept through the whole evacuation, Waver said, so I can see how that would throw you for a loop. Lau drained a shot. She was the best at the game in-house, hence why she was always paired with BC. Seriously, Wave, can we not right now? BC asked. Can we literally talk about anything else? Like anything else, please? I mean, that's the shit that's on everyone's mind, isn't it? He said. Otherwise, we're just avoiding it. I'm not trying to avoid it, Wave. I'm just sick of talking about it. How was your night, other than that? Well, I stepped out with some buddies to go have a drink and a smoke back at their place by the docks, Waver said. We hit the water damn near as soon as we heard the bells. We're halfway down the coast with a full fleet of other people when word started to come back that it was a false alarm. You know, that sounds a whole lot like talking about it, Wave, BC growled. What, and then we got more fucked up than I've ever been, Wave said, shouldering into the other girl, who shouldered him hard back. Girl, that's more scared than I've been since we evacuated in the war. Sorry that it was a part of my night. We can't all just not give a fuck like you can. Cal shot and missed. Don't ever think that I don't give a fuck, Wave, BC muttered. I give so much of a fuck. I'm just trying to chill and let this moment be a chill moment. Lau stepped up and drained a shot down the middle. Fuck yeah, Lau! BC shouted aggressively. It was in character for her, and Lau gave an elaborate bow. Look, I'm sorry, Waver said. No beef. I was worried sick about you. After that shit that went down at the club, then the evacuation. I don't know. Machine King here, Edira's all pissy, families are getting antsy. I feel bad that I wasn't there to wake you up. Don't be, BC answered, more forcefully than she'd liked. Cal landed a shot on target, but Waver didn't celebrate. Sorry, she said, before continuing. Sorry, seriously, sorry. Seriously, Wave, don't worry about me. You're my friend, BC, Waver said. I think it's natural to worry. I'll be fine, BC said. B, you can let people help you out every once in a while, Waver said, a little more forceful than he would have liked. He saw the temper flare in the shorter girl, but then it gave way to something else. When she spoke next, her voice was lower, so even with gift-enhanced hearing, no one else would be able to hear. I just want you to know, Wave, she said, like the words themselves were heavy, that I'll be fine. I promise you that from the bottom of my heart, just like I've promised everybody else. Can you please take me at that? Please. Waver was silent for 2 more shots from the other side, but then he nodded. Yeah, okay, I trust you, he said. As they tallied up points from Lau and Cal, he sighed. BC prepared a sandbag for match point, and then stopped, flipping it in her hands as she thought. Look, okay, it ain't perfect, she said. I've been a lot of places, seen a lot of scary shit. And there ain't a whole lot of places that got this many sleeping dragons ready to wake up and protect them. Rest assured for that, okay? Now can we not talk about this again? That was more than she had shared with him about her history than in the entirety of their friendship. Nothing, not drugs, not liquor, nothing had ever gotten her to reveal anything more than deflectory notions of whatever nature her life prior to Reen had been. Somehow, that scared Waver almost as much as the night before. BC tossed the bag, missing wildly again. "Fuck!" she swore. "Screw up," she said to Waver. "Fuck the bread. Piss it away. Drop the cat. Fucking, I don't know. Don't score, you little bitch." "Well, I can always count on you to be consistent," Waver said, stepping up and draining match point. "You motherfucker," she spat, and followed it up with several more creative curses. He stuck a hand out. "Good game," he said. "I think you almost scored a point that time." Bisa grumbled more that was horribly offensive, but then Waver laughed, and she reluctantly began their complicated handshake.
"Dinner's ready,"
Ivo called.
"Get it while it's hot."
A cheer went out in response, and all around there was a movement towards the grills and the tables, where the salad was ready alongside a pile of plates.
"Except you, Jazz and Vela,"
another voice called out.
"Got another in-home, a double. Joven, you're up." "Another? How many only rich men we got in this town?"
Vela groaned. Her trainer, Jazz, smacked her on the back.
"It's all part of the business. Lighten up. Doubles cost extra and in-homes tip well,"
the enthusiastic older woman said. Vela sighed loudly.
"All right, but I'm bringing some food to go," she said. "Ivo, help me out." "Hey, you got it,"
Ivo responded, serving her up a box as Jazz watched on with eyes wide.
"Are you serious?"
Jazz asked. Ivo threw back some of the fruit salad, unperturbed.
"The world's ending. No way they care about a little pork breath,"
Vela said, as they were joined by Joven, the bodyguard. Jazz smacked her on the back of the head.
"Get out of here," she said. "We got work to do." "Here's to the end of the world,"
Vela called out sarcastically, lifting the box like a toast as she began to walk downstairs.
"To the end of the world,"
most of Velvet called back. Val. It was a slow process of deliberation that drove Val as he ran through his usual suite of exercises, testing to make sure that every part of his body still worked and would be ready for what might come. The otherworldly cocktail of energy from the two X's had run wild throughout the day, zipping back and forth under his skin, knitting and rewriting and realigning injured muscle fibers, reinvigorating tired limbs, and sealing the cuts and the bruises. Now all that remained were a few aches and pains and some phantom hurt. The young girl had come back to play with Etta and Rowan, and even as she had roughhoused the two hounds, who loved the young X, there had been a warm green glow that had dripped from her fingers, emanating out through the hounds' fur and settling before dissipating into their skin and their hearts, and each of them had seemed to grow stronger and stand taller. It was a bizarre art of the people of the Wildlands, and while Val was engulfed in conflict about the fact that it still reverberated in him, he rose and stood tall. From his back pocket, he drew his ace in the hole, the one consolation from their mad race to the sea. Fragments of Rat's shirt, torn away in the last moments on the boat. A piece of his scent, of his essence, which still stank of the man so vividly and violently that Val knew with a stronger nose he could pick the man out from a million. With a whistle, he called the hounds and took a knee in front of Etta and Rowan. He pulled them tight into an embrace and ensured that the two of them were close as they could be. "I'm sorry," he said. "I wish I could protect you. I wish I could leave you to run free to be happy like you were in Min's, but I need you right now." There was a gentle growl from the two wolfhounds, first from Rowan and then from Etta, and rather than leaning into their master, they stepped away and stood at attention. Then each slowly bowed their heads, snout to the ground. Among wolfhounds there were strong bonds of loyalty and devotion, and a life was well lived in service to the pack. All throughout their lives, Etta and Rowan had known the tall Edarin as their pack leader, but it was only as he had brought them near to death and now into the life that lay beyond it that this affirmation of loyalty, an intrinsic instinct, kicked in. They would only do it once in their lifetimes, and now they would stand by him until the death of the world or their final breath. Val stood once more. He had seen this once, when he and Darkstar had stood in the aftermath of the Dusk Ball, and it held the same weight to him now as it had then. For a moment it saddened him to see it for the second time. But, in a way, reflected in the resolute figures of his children, Darkstar lived on, and in this way he would continue to fight. Val led the two hounds outside the shed and lowered the scent item to them. They took in the smell, and then they began to walk slowly around the storage shed. Once, twice, 3 times, 4, the hounds circled the shed, noses high to the air, parsing the infinite stream of scents and smells for a match. The two slowed and stopped, as if conferring, and then began to pace once more, in semicircles now, then in shallow arcs, before they conferred again. With a few more moments, the two hounds decided and returned to Val with a single snap from each of their jaws. They had found what he looked for, and they were ready to hunt it. He was close. Close enough to run and reach by a night and the sun's rising. With a pat to each of the hounds, Val stood and looked out across the city. He was without a weapon, but he would find one soon enough. There would be men between him and Rat. There always were. Returning to the shed, Val collected the baskets and the crumbs into one pile, carefully arranging the supplies that the freemen had given him, hands tightening around the basket. He did not like leaving debts, but everything he had owned had been taken and currently laid in Hyde Command. It would be paid back, with interest. Gently kicking out the ashes of the fire, Val donned his now beaten and still damp coat and prepared to leave. But at the front door stood the girl. She was so utterly and fundamentally separate from the man who stood in front of her, and though he knew it and she knew it, still she stood in front of him with a last gift. Another set of brushes for the hounds and a small pile of cheese that, though it wasn't expensive, having been stolen from the kitchens of the Haven, was the most valuable gift that she could have given to the traveler who she'd helped heal and return to health. It was, in its essence, a childish act. Val had little use for a hunk of cheese with the calories he and the hounds required. It was of no notable quality, and there was nowhere to store the brushes. But use was not always the point of a gift. Setting down to his knees, He selected a single brush from the girl and called Etta and Rowan, who lay down at her side, excited to see her. He handed her the brush, inviting her to pet them, and her eyes went alight and green as he took the cheese. Breaking chunks off, he fed himself, each of the hounds, and then finally the girl, who giggled and smiled at the gift back. They said nothing for a few moments, while the girl brushed the hounds and Val finished the cheese, and when it was time to go, Val returned them all except for one, whistling for the hounds and standing to go. It was with a strain on his heart that he moved past her, lingering for a moment but nothing more. Then he descended through the grasses, gliding through the dark and eventually up to the rooftops of the old city, led by the hounds, chasing a rat that had escaped them.